Well, hello, this is State Representative Kate Lipper-Garabedian, and thank you for joining in for our Conversations with Kate. I am really thrilled today to get to have a chance to talk with my amazing legislative fellow for the school year, Diana Haber-Daws, who has been in the office for about a month and a half, and I just wanted to have a chance for her to get to talk with me and introduce herself to the district. So good morning, Diana.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here, Kate. Thank you.
Yes, so I have been just so thrilled to have you in the office. You've been helping out on a lot of different big substantive matters and constituent services, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think it would be great to hear a bit about, who you are and where you come from. So maybe if you want to give us sort of your brief bio, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. So first off, an identity marker that's very important to me is that I'm first-generation American. My parents are Cuban political refugees, and so growing up, protecting and bolstering the pillars of democracy was very important to me. And I quickly, at a young age, started to really think about, under what conditions, and of course has refined since I've gotten older, but what conditions are necessary to have communities thrive, be joyful, healthy, safe, and essentially free to be able to make choices, which of course in communist Cuba was taken away from those people. And so that has really been an identity marker that's really important to me. And of course, as a daughter, a dancer, a sister, and throughout my experiences, just continue to make choices of, okay, am I being a contribution to the best of my ability? Is this something that's contributing to communities being happy, healthy, safe, and free, and also for myself? And so growing up, as I said before, identified as a dancer. I quickly can't stop moving my feet, and it's something I really still identify with, both as like how I approach my work with discipline and grace and how I implement feedback, but also just to allow movement and full self-expression. I grew up a classically trained dancer and was fortunate enough to go to a public performing arts school. And from there, quickly understood the importance of choices and education, and then had led me to attend Florida State University, where I studied international affairs and minored in leadership studies. And at Florida State, I was able to have an internship with Senator Sobel. She was a really powerful woman who really got me inspired to really take up space and to be seen. And she was on the education committee. And for there, everything just clicked and the dots connected, that education really is that bridge that connects communities, is that intersection in which almost everyone has in common, right? So that either you've attended school, you know someone who's attended school, and it's one of those centering pillars that really bring together communities and families, but also as an intersection of the private sector, the public sector, and civil society.
Wow. I'm just thinking a little bit about that trajectory and how I think your parents must be so proud, for one, right? And that you're able to sort of live out some of these really critical values that they've instilled in you based on personal family experience. And it makes sense to me that you would sort of find a meaning in education and the work there, including because it sounds like you yourself had a great fit in your K-12, experience of being able to harness your skill set and the passion that you had for dancing and find a good fit in your education trajectory. That's really, really great. And I think it's something that I think about, I know you do too, about we would love every student in Massachusetts or in the country to similarly have this level of support for their passion and their abilities as they move through their career as a student.
Yes, certainly, absolutely. And I think it just all comes down to choice. Bell Hooks says really profoundly that oppression is the absence of choice, and that's something that has stuck with me. So then how do we continue to give access and agency to people, and how do I practice choice within my own self too?
Right. And so I think one thing that we have in common as well is our first jobs out of college were as teachers in the Teach for America program. That's also how we ended up being connected here in 2021. But why don't you tell me a little bit about what it was like to teach? And I think you were in Florida for that as well.
Yes, so absolutely. It was my final year of undergrad. And of course, at that point, where how do I best be in contribution to society and in that place of choices? And I had a close friend who went through the matriculation process for Teach for America and thought I would be a good fit, and thought, okay, maybe, but I know I want to work in education, but I'm not sure, I didn't study education in school, so I'm not sure if it was almost kind of like pardon, of the imposter syndrome of like, am I truly qualified to be a classroom teacher if this is not what I've studied, and wanted to, of course, honor the profession in that space. So I took a leadership for entrepreneur class my final year, and we were tasked with creating a final project on solving an issue, and the issue I wanted to solve was education, but on a global level, and wrote up my whole project proposal and what the organization would be. And my professor, as I was going along, asked, Diana, this is very similar to the Teach for America model. Have you really looked into it? And realized that I truly replicated the Teach for America model in my final project. And so perhaps, I should pursue this. And I was contacted by a recruiter, went through the process, and knew it was a really strong fit. That same year, I lost my cousin, who were only 4 months apart, to an opioid overdose in Miami-Dade. And so as I was matriculating through the application process, I knew I wanted to serve in the district that I felt had failed her, and wanted to Mother Teresa always says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And so I was so globally focused, international affairs major, looking at how to solve education on a global level, that I realized that there's a lot of work that needs to be done locally, and of course, around my own dinner table at home.
Wow, I didn't know that about your cousin, and I'm really sorry. I know that we've talked some about different task forces and meetings that are happening to address the opioid crisis here in Massachusetts, and that you were really passionate in that work, but I can see now a little bit why. And obviously it's a crisis that has touched most families at this point in our country. So how inspiring, though, that you took that pain and put it into purpose and found a really, I'm sure, great fit at the school, working with your students. You've talked to me a little bit about starting up a dance class there, which is amazing. So I know that you made a real difference for the students that you had in the classroom. And so since then, you've done a graduate school program, and now we're working together for this school year. So tell me a little bit about sort of, what led you to want to do a public policy fellowship like this. And then maybe we can peel back the curtain a little bit, and you can tell folks sort of what you've been working on in the office and some of the things that you're looking forward to continuing to work on through the school year.
Yes, certainly. So leaving the classroom was one of the most challenging decisions I think I'll make, and I'm not sure if I'll ever have a job that was as fulfilling as the relationship building. And thank you for acknowledging the difference that I hope I've made in their lives. So from there, I went to the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, where I studied human security and international conflict resolution negotiation. And so how can we really solve these and address these big challenges on a way with compassion? And I can now consider myself like a people-centered problem solver. And then again, throughout this time of a turning point of how else can I best be in contribution now with my new skill sets and the opportunities in education I have now fulfilled, the January 6th insurrection really brought me back to bolstering the pillars of democracy and those same values that my family has instilled on me when I was young about the importance of democracy and public service. I realized that I need to really understand how we can best support everyone and how we can use the infrastructure that we already have in our government to really create change and evolve, especially as we respond to this pandemic that has brought out and exacerbated so many issues, but have also connected us in a really meaningful way, where now there's a window has been open on so many issues, and now is really an opportunity where not just to respond, but to really remodel, reframe, and transform. And so I knew I wanted to work directly with law building and law structuring, because as people may say politics is messy, it's still one of the most powerful mechanisms we have for human progress, and policy truly binds everything. So I really wanted to get my hands dirty in that. Especially prior, I was working as a researcher on global youth education with USAID, and that work was really fulfilling, looking at the great work that's being done globally, but I really knew I wanted to take more of a local action and kind of transition from that research role to, again, that practitioner and action-oriented.
Right. Right. Well, hearing about your family's background in Cuba and thinking about January 6th, I think that's right, that there's a tenuousness to all of the structures we have in place. And if we don't have people continually giving into it and buying into it and working to improve it, then we're only as good as sort of our weakest link, or, and so I'm so thrilled that, you're finding a real purpose here and excited to sort of see your career continue and the ways that you're going to be impactful in any area in which you serve. So I'm glad to have you here for this year and interested. Why don't you let us know a little bit about some of the ways in which you've been already really tremendously supporting Melrose and the district over this last month and a half? What have you been working on?
Yeah, sure, thank you. I've loved being able to connect more with the district. I'm excited to connect as we progress further, but immediately hit the ground running on advancing the Student Data and Educator Privacy Act, in which Representative Kate and Representative Jeff Roy have proposed, and we're advancing. And so putting together that legislative briefing. I said earlier, like, one of the things that lights me up is that intersection of the private sector and civil society and public sector, and putting together that legislative briefing and ensuring its success was immediately one of the first tasks that we fulfilled. And now, as the bill has gone to hearing, and of course, we sit and have our fingers crossed as we work on advancing it and having it into law. And then, of course, just to have a bill on education was really exciting. But specifically at the district, working in community engagement and stakeholder engagement, putting together the community conversations events is also really exciting to me. And then how can we allow our community members to, again, have this access to decision making and to leaders, and have their insight and know their perspectives and what their priority, and how they can also voice their own concerns and ensure that they are truly being representative.
Right.
And then, of course, the Fall Festival coming up. I'm excited, and just to connect with, again, the local practitioners, local businesses. Learning the great work of the Y Academy here at Metro North has been really inspiring to me, and being able to even see students in the classroom again has light up, all the sparkles in my heart.
Yeah, I think it's a feel good to be in the community and to have those connections, and it's also really critical for the work. It's been an isolating year and a half for everyone, and it's been challenging, right, in a role where the idea is to represent an entire district when you don't have touch points as frequently as you otherwise would. It's been really meaningful when people have reached out to our office to seek help and assistance, because it gives us a window into some of the vulnerabilities in the bigger process that we maybe need to address. It's also incredibly informative for thinking about next steps in terms of policy making. I know that, you have now sort of been engaged too in the degree to which we'll get constituent requests or questions or positions on a particular issue. And, I do my best to respond to everyone so that they're aware of sort of where I might stand on the issue. Even when we differ, I want them to know so that they can hold me accountable in the way that they think appropriate. And so it sort of thinking through some of the values that you have and recognizing that that's sort of reflected here, right? And it's been really helpful for me to be able now to loop you into those conversations and note you as a resource for the district, because I know that you have such compassion and thoughtfulness in terms of supporting people where they are. So I'm glad to have you on board.
Excellent. So grateful to be here and to serve in this capacity, and
Yeah.
of course to learn with you.
So we're both from the South. I'm from Virginia, a little north of you, but it's a different sort of animal to be up in New England. So maybe we'll end on sort of what are some of the things you've liked about living in Massachusetts and in New England, and some of the things you like to do outside of the job.
Absolutely. So, of course, my family was concerned that their Floridian was moving up north, but I do value myself as an adaptable person, and quickly just loved, of course, the seasons, and never would I have thought I would be so moved beyond just like the aesthetic of the seasons, but truly what has been, of course, now in fall, just to see the transition of the leaves falling, but really spring has really struck me in my spirit, I think, in ways that I wasn't prepared for. So watching the budding of the leaves on the trees has just been, and how patient and slow, and then all at once the leaves are back. And then to hear the leaves, I recall just this past spring, like waking up one morning and just hearing the rustling of the leaves, and a sound that I haven't heard in a while because the leaves hadn't been here. So that has been something really beautiful. And of course, like just to kind of go through my own introspective and my own reflection as a person as we cycle through our own seasons, and watching that be reflected outwardly in the environment has been really touching. And especially during this year of COVID, being able to really stay in touch to that in a way that perhaps in this fast-paced environment I would have missed.
Right. Well, I think I'll remember that when we're in the middle of February or we have another snowstorm in March. I'll keep my mind on the fact that pretty soon I'll be able to hear the leaves coming, and I'll keep that with me to have some grace in that moment. Yes. Well, Diana, I'm thrilled to get to have you on board. I'm so lucky, truly, to have a thought partner and someone so passionate about the issues and compassionate about people. And so I'm glad that Melrose and the full 32nd Middlesex District will be able to look to you as a resource over the remainder of this school year, and excited to see your career trajectory. So thank you for being with me. Absolutely. And thanks for joining me for Conversations with Kate.
Yes, thank you. Humbled to be here, and please, continue to reach out. I love hearing from everyone. I'm very much a people person, and so please continue to reach out, and I'm really excited for what the rest of the year holds.
Excellent. And I guess I'll let folks know who are listening that you can contact Diana directly. Her email address in my office is fellow, FELLOW, .lipper-garabian @mahouse.gov. Thanks so much for listening, and be well.